The disaster there has happened only a little bit more than 2 weeks ago, so the situation is still developing and developing fast. But you could see two things in Haiti so far, and that is in the first 2 weeks, 8 organizations were too scared to go from the airport into the town of Port-au-Prince to do their first aid to all those many victims there. And they were too scared because there was this media frenzy. Here's the link again between 8 organizations and the media. The international media, and CNN was the first one there, the international media made the whole disaster in Haiti into one big plundering and violence being used by the people in Haiti. People were fighting for food and they were killing each other with knives over water. So this is what the story that journalists were chasing there. And it made the fright of 8 organizations so big that the 8 organizations did not dare to go out and help the victims if they could not get armed escorts. And the armed escorts, in the form of the United Nations soldiers who were there, they were not big enough in numbers. So only a few 8 organizations delivered a little bit of aid to many people in 2 weeks' time. So after 2 weeks, people were still starving and they were still waiting for some water. Another thing that we will see in the near future with Haiti is that it is very much an American project. Haiti is close to America. European countries hardly know where Haiti is. So the biggest aid donor is the United States. And we will see that the government of the United States is going to set the agenda of the NGOs who are going to work there. It's American money, and the American government will decide for the NGOs in what way and how quickly the money will be spent.
And the last question. In your book, you say that in many occasions aids have the result of helping the parties in conflict, making the wars longer. Why you say this, and why this issue is so rarely discussed in the international institution and on the media?
It is rarely discussed because 8 organizations, they will not volunteer this information. It is very bad publicity for them if we, the donors, find out that an unknown amount of money is actually disappearing into the pockets of warlords and into the pockets of dictators and generals. So it is kept a secret by 8 organizations, but they all know that this is happening because obviously it's them putting the money inside those pockets. It is happening. It is something that is part of the aid industry, part of the way aid works. Is that if you are an aid organization and you go into a war zone and you want access to the victims, the people who stay inside refugee camps, or the people who are in orphanages, or the people who are in clinics, as an aid organization you always have to make a deal with the people who are locally in charge there. You have to ask them for permission to work inside those refugee camps, and you have to ask them for permission to enter the hospitals and the orphanages. It is what aid organizations themselves call shaking hands with the devil. You have to come to an agreement with the local authorities. So if you go to Sudan as an aid organization, in one place in Sudan you have to negotiate with rebel groups that are there. In another place in Sudan you have to negotiate with the military regime in Sudan. You always have to shake hands with one of those 2 devils. If you go to the Congo, every few kilometers there's another rebel group who will want excess fee from aid organizations. It happened in ex-Yugoslavia, where the Serb warriors were getting about 30% of the aid as an excess fee for aid organizations to be allowed entrance into the safe areas where the Muslims were. Charles Taylor in Liberia, he demanded 15% of the value of all the aid. In Somalia, the price could go up to 80% of the aid. So it is part of the economics of aid that is delivered in war zones. You always have to negotiate with the local authorities, who are often the bad guys in a war zone. It is the people with the guns who are the authority.